Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiant Hope, watching the stars through the main viewport. Her ship was not beautiful by galactic standards. The hull showed patches where repairs had been made with whatever materials they could find. The engines made odd noises that worried the engineers. But it was humanity's first real spaceship, and Elena was proud of it. "Captain, we're getting strange looks from that Alterian cruiser again," said Lieutenant Chen from the communication station. He pointed to the sleek alien ship that had been following them for the past hour. Elena sighed. 3 months had passed since Earth made first contact with the Galactic Confederation. 3 months of being treated like children who had somehow learned to walk upright. The aliens smiled politely when they spoke to humans, but Elena could see the judgment in their eyes. They thought humans were primitive, backwards, not worth their time. The Confederation had rules for everything. Rules about what ships could look like. Rules about what weapons were allowed. Rules about how civilized species should behave. Humans broke most of these rules just by existing. "Let them stare," Elena said. "We have every right to be here." The bridge was smaller than those on Confederation ships. Everything was packed together because humans had to build with limited resources. The crew of 42 worked in spaces that would make other species feel trapped, but humans were used to making do with less. Commander Torres, Elena's second-in-command, approached with a data pad. "The latest reports from the Confederation Council meeting are in. They're still debating whether to give us Class B trading rights." Elena shook her head. When humans first arrived at the galactic capital, they had been classified as a Class C primitive species. This meant they could only trade for basic supplies and were not allowed to participate in important decisions. The Confederation acted like they were doing humanity a huge favor by allowing them any contact at all. "What did Ambassador Reynolds say?" Elena asked. "The same thing he always says, that we need to be patient, that we need to prove ourselves worthy of respect." Torres did not hide his frustration. Meanwhile, species that have never left their home systems get better treatment because they follow the proper technological development patterns. The communication system beeped. Lieutenant Chen looked up from his station with surprise. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. It's coming from the edge of known space." Elena moved to Chen's station. "Can you identify the source?" "It's from Kepler 7 research station. They're reporting some kind of attack. The signal is weak and breaking up, but they're definitely asking for help." Elena looked at the star charts. Kepler 7 was far from any major shipping routes. It was a joint research facility where the galaxy's best scientists studied dangerous technologies. If something was attacking it, the situation was serious. "Send the distress call to Confederation Command," Elena ordered. "They'll want to coordinate a response." 20 minutes later, the reply came back. Lieutenant Chen's face showed disgust as he read it. "Confederation Command says the nearest fleet is 4 days away. They suggest we monitor the situation until proper forces can arrive." "Monitor?" Torres asked angrily. "People are dying, and they want us to watch?" Elena studied the tactical display. The Defiant Hope could reach Kepler 7 in 18 hours if they pushed the engines hard. But going alone violated several Confederation protocols. Elena was supposed to wait for permission. She was supposed to follow proper procedures. She thought about the scientists at Kepler 7. Some of them had been kind to humans during first contact. Dr. Zethkalar had actually listened when human engineers suggested improvements to shield generators. Most aliens ignored human ideas, but a few had shown respect. "Chen, send a message to Confederation Command," Elena decided. "Tell them we're responding to the distress call." "Captain," Torres said quietly, "they won't like that." Elena knew he was right. The Confederation expected Class C species to follow orders without question. They would see Elena's decision as proof that humans were too wild and unpredictable to be trusted with greater responsibilities. "Maybe they won't like it," Elena said, "but I can live with their disapproval. I can't live with ignoring people who need help." The crew began preparations for the jump to hyperspace. Chief Engineer Martinez reported that the engines could handle the strain, though he recommended against making it a regular habit. Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's medical officer, prepared the medical bay for possible casualties. As the Defiant Hope entered hyperspace, Elena thought about the conversation she had with her daughter before leaving Earth. Lisa had asked why humans even wanted to join the Confederation when the aliens clearly did not want them. Elena had explained that humans needed allies in the galaxy, that Earth was small and vulnerable on its own, that joining the Confederation would give humanity access to advanced technology and protection from threats. But sitting in her captain's chair now, Elena wondered if her daughter had been right. The Confederation offered protection, but at the cost of respect. They offered technology, but only if humans agreed to be treated as inferior. Lieutenant Chen turned from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up some chatter on Confederation frequencies. Word is getting out that we're responding to the Kepler-7 situation. What are they saying?" "Most of them think we're making a mistake. Some are calling it typical human recklessness. A few are taking bets on how quickly we'll call for rescue." Elena felt anger building in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "Well, then we better make sure we don't need rescuing." The hours passed slowly as the ship traveled through hyperspace. Elena used the time to study everything the ship's computer knew about Kepler-7. The research station was built around a massive space telescope that could see into other dimensions. The scientists there studied things that most species considered too dangerous to investigate. Dr. Zethkalar led the research team. He was one of the few aliens who had shown genuine interest in human perspectives during first contact. His species, the Valorians, were known for their logical approach to problems. But Zethkalar had admitted that humans sometimes found solutions that pure logic missed. As they prepared to drop out of hyperspace near Kepler-7, Elena called her senior officers to the bridge. "Whatever we find out there, remember that we represent all of humanity. The galaxy is watching to see what we're made of." Chief Martinez spoke for the crew. "We won't let you down, Captain. We won't let Earth down." The Defiant Hope dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler-7 system. What they found there would shock the galaxy and change everything the Confederation thought they knew about the primitive species from Earth. On the main screen, Kepler-7 appeared as a bright dot surrounded by smaller lights. But as the sensors focused, Elena could see that some of those lights were not supposed to be there. Ships surrounded the research station, ships that moved in perfect formation and fired weapons that turned sections of the station's hull into glowing slag. "My God," whispered Torres. "What are those things?" Elena stared at the alien ships. They were unlike anything in the Confederation database. Black metal hulls that seemed to absorb light, weapons that fired beams of pure energy. And they moved with a coordination that suggested they were controlled by a single mind. "Red alert," Elena ordered. "All hands to battle stations, we're going in." The bridge of the Defiant Hope buzzed with activity as the crew prepared for battle. Elena watched the tactical display update with information about the attacking ships. The computer struggled to classify them because they matched no known design in the galactic database. 27 enemy vessels surrounding Kepler-7, reported Lieutenant Chen. "They're not responding to any communication attempts. The research station's shields are down to 30%. Elena studied the enemy formation. The ships moved like parts of a machine, each one perfectly positioned to support the others. Their attack patterns showed no wasted motion, no emotion, no hesitation. It reminded her of something she had read in the restricted files back on Earth. "Torres, pull up everything we have on the ancient machine wars," Elena ordered. Commander Torres looked surprised. "Captain, those are just legends. The Confederation says those wars never really happened." "The Confederation says a lot of things," Elena replied. "But humor me." Torres accessed the historical database. The information was limited and marked as unverified. According to the files, 10,000 years ago, the galaxy had been invaded by self-replicating machines that called themselves the Devourers. They had consumed entire star systems before disappearing as mysteriously as they had arrived. Elena looked at the ships attacking Kepler-7. Their perfect coordination and emotionless efficiency matched the old descriptions exactly. "Captain," Chief Martinez called from the engineering station. "We're receiving a transmission from Kepler-7. It's Dr. Zethkalar." The main screen flickered and showed the face of the Valorian scientist. His normally calm features showed signs of panic. Behind him, Elena could see other researchers working frantically at damaged control panels. Human ship Defiant Hope, this is Dr. Zeth Kalar. Thank the stars you came. We are under attack by ships we cannot identify. Our defenses are failing and our evacuation pods have been destroyed. Elena stepped forward. Doctor, this is Captain Vasquez. We're here to help. Can you tell us what you were working on before the attack? Zeth Kalar hesitated, then made a decision. We discovered something in the deep space surveys, ancient coordinates that led to a massive construct hidden in folded space. We believe it controls a network of machines that once threatened the galaxy. Elena felt her blood turn cold. Doctor, are you saying these ships are devourers? I believe so, yes. And Captain, if they capture our research, they will know that we found their central nexus. The entire galaxy could be in danger. The transmission cut off as explosions rocked the research station. Elena saw the station's shields flicker and fail in several sections. The attacking ships began moving closer, preparing to board. Analysis of enemy ships complete, reported Lieutenant Chen. Their technology is unlike anything in our database. Energy output suggests they could destroy us in minutes. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. They were scared, but none of them suggested retreating. Humans had a reputation for being stubborn, and her crew was proving it true. Options? Elena asked. We could wait for the Confederation fleet, Torres suggested. They'll be here in 4 days. The station won't last 4 hours, Elena replied. Chen, how many people are on Kepler 7? 312 researchers from 17 different species. Elena made her decision. All power to weapons and shields. We're going in. Captain, Dr. Kim protested from her station. Those ships will destroy us. Maybe, Elena agreed. But maybe they won't expect us to fight. The Confederation's files say the Devourers study their enemies and adapt to their tactics. But they've never fought humans before. The Defiant Hope accelerated toward the enemy formation. Elena could imagine what the galaxy's military experts would think of her plan. It violated every principle of space combat. She was attacking a superior force without support, without proper intelligence, and without following any recognized tactical doctrine. But that might be exactly what she needed. Enemy. Ships are turning to face us, Chen reported. They're breaking off their attack on the station. Elena smiled grimly. Good. We have their attention. The first Devourer ship fired energy beams that would have destroyed any normal vessel. But Elena had ordered Martinez to route all available power to the forward shields. The beams struck the Defiant Hope and sent it spinning, but the ship held together. Return fire, Elena ordered. The human ship's weapons were primitive by galactic standards. They fired explosive projectiles instead of energy beams. They were slower and less accurate than modern weapons. But they were also unpredictable. The Devourer ships tried to calculate the trajectory of incoming missiles, but the human weapons used random course corrections. Instead of flying in straight lines, they zigzagged through space like drunken insects. 3 missiles struck Devourer ships, and Elena watched with satisfaction as the enemy vessels lost power and began to drift. How is that possible? Torres asked in amazement. Their computers probably never encountered weapons that changed direction randomly, Elena explained. They're designed to fight logical enemies. But the Devourers were learning. The remaining ships spread out and began firing from multiple directions. The Defiant Hope could not shield against attacks from all sides. Hull breach on Deck 7, Martinez reported. We're losing atmosphere. Elena watched the tactical display as more enemy ships closed in. The logical thing to do was retreat. Any sane captain would try to escape while they still could. Elena was feeling anything but sane. Martinez, can you overload the port engine? The chief engineer looked confused. Yes, but that would create a massive explosion. It might destroy us. Or it might take some of them with us, Elena said. Do it. Captain, Torres protested. That's suicide. No, Elena corrected. That's something they won't expect. The Defiant Hope suddenly accelerated toward the nearest group of Devourer ships. The enemy vessels tried to move away, but Elena had guessed correctly. Their computers could not process the idea of a ship deliberately destroying itself to damage enemies. Martinez triggered the overload just as the human ship passed through the enemy formation. The explosion lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, 4 Devourer ships were gone and the Defiant Hope was still intact, though badly damaged.
"How are we still alive?" Dr. Kim asked. "The explosion was directed away from our main hull," Martinez explained. "Barely." The remaining Devourer ships regrouped. But something had changed. They moved more cautiously now, as if they were unsure
what the humans might do next. Elena used their hesitation to position her ship between the enemies and Kepler-7. "Chen, can you contact the station?" "Yes, Captain. Dr. Zethkalar is standing by." "Doctor, we're going to cover your evacuation. How many ships do you have that are still working?" "Only 2 small research vessels. They can carry perhaps 50 people each." Elena did the math. 300 people, 2 small ships, and dozens of enemy vessels still in the system. The evacuation would take hours they did not have. "We'll hold them off as long as we can," Elena promised. For the next 6 hours, the Defiant Hope played a deadly game of cat and mouse with the Devourer fleet. Elena used every trick she could think of. She hid behind asteroids and fired from unexpected angles. She used the ship's damaged hull as camouflage, making the Devourers think they had destroyed her when she was just playing dead. Most importantly, she fought like no computer could predict. She made decisions that defied logic, took risks that seemed insane, and refused to follow any pattern the enemy could analyze. Slowly, painfully, the evacuation continued. The research vessels made trip after trip between the station and the edge of the system, carrying refugees to safety. When the last scientist was evacuated, Elena felt a moment of pride. They had done something the galaxy thought impossible. They had held off a superior force through sheer determination and human stubbornness. But their victory came with a price. The Defiant Hope was badly damaged and running low on ammunition. And now Dr. Zethkalar was telling her something that would change everything. "Captain Vasquez," the scientist said from the safety of an evacuation ship, "there is something you must know. Our research discovered the location of the Devourer Central Nexus. If they have awakened after 10,000 years, they will use that nexus to coordinate an invasion of the entire galaxy." Elena stared at the tactical display, where Devourer ships were regrouping for another attack. She thought about Earth, defenseless and alone at the edge of known space. She thought about the Confederation, with their rigid tactics and predictable strategies. The galaxy was about to face an enemy that fed on logic and thrived on predictability. An enemy that could only be defeated by someone willing to embrace chaos, someone like humans. 3 days after the rescue at Kepler-7, the Defiant Hope limped into the Confederation naval base at Centauri Station. The human ship looked like it had been through a war, which it had. Scorch marks covered the hull. Several sections were held, together with emergency patches, and the port engine made concerning noises that worried everyone who heard them. Elena stood in the command center of the massive station, surrounded by the galaxy's most senior military officers. Admiral Thexmore of the Hegemony Navy studied holographic displays showing the Devourer attack. General Korth of the Militarist Union examined tactical reports with growing concern. Even Fleet Commander Yilseth of the Peaceful Harmony Collective looked worried. "Captain Vasquez," Admiral Thexmore began, his 4 arms gesturing at the displays. "Your actions at Kepler-7 were unexpected. However, this threat you describe requires a proper military response." Elena had been through this conversation 12 times in the past 3 days. Every senior officer wanted to hear about the Devourers, but none of them wanted to listen to her suggestions about how to fight them. "Admiral, with respect, a traditional military response is exactly what they expect," Elena said. "The Devourers have been studying galactic warfare for 10,000 years. They know how you fight." General Korth, a massive reptilian creature with scales that changed color when he was annoyed, shifted to a deep red. "Captain, your species has been in space for less than a year. We have been perfecting military science for millennia." "And that's exactly the problem," Elena replied. Your military science follows patterns. The Devourers can predict patterns. Dr. Zethkalar, who had been quietly observing from the side of the room, stepped forward. If I may, the captain has a point. Our analysis of the Devourer ships shows they adapt to enemy tactics within minutes of first contact. Traditional approaches may not be effective. Fleet Commander Yilseth, whose people resembled tall, graceful birds, ruffled her feathers in agitation. Dr. Zethkalar, surely you are not suggesting we abandon proven military doctrine in favor of chaos? I'm suggesting that maybe chaos is exactly what we need, Elena said. At Kepler 7, the only reason we survived was because we did things that made no logical sense. Admiral Thexmore pulled up a tactical display showing the Confederation's military assets. Thousands of ships, from fast destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, were scattered across hundreds of star systems. Captain, we appreciate your assistance at Kepler 7, but this is beyond the scope of a single primitive vessel. Elena felt her patience wearing thin. Admiral, where is the Devourer Nexus located? Dr. Zethkalar activated a stellar map. A red dot appeared in empty space far from any star system. Our research indicates it exists in a pocket of folded space-time, approximately here. The construct is enormous, possibly the size of a small moon. What kind of defenses does it have? Elena asked. Unknown, but likely extensive. The Nexus would be the Devourer's most important facility. They would protect it with everything they have. Admiral Thexmore studied the location. We will assemble a strike fleet, 100 of our finest ships with our most experienced crews. A coordinated assault should overwhelm any defenses. Elena shook her head. Admiral, that's exactly what they want you to do. They'll see your fleet coming days before you arrive. They'll know exactly how many ships you have, what weapons you carry, and what tactics you'll use. Then what do you suggest? General Korth asked, his scales shifting to an even deeper red. Elena looked around the room at the assembled military leaders. These were beings who had spent their entire careers following rules, respecting protocols, and fighting wars according to established principles. They were good at their jobs, but they were predictable. I suggest you let us try first, Elena said. The room fell silent. Admiral Thexmore's forearms stopped moving. General Korth's scales shifted to a color Elena had never seen before. Fleet Commander Yilseth made a sound that her translator interpreted as laughter. Captain, Admiral Thexmore said slowly, you are suggesting that a single damaged ship crewed by primitives should assault the most heavily defended target in the galaxy? I'm suggesting that a single unpredictable ship might succeed where 100 predictable ones would fail, Elena replied. Dr. Zethkalar spoke up again. The captain may be correct. The Devourer's strength lies in their ability to analyze and counter enemy tactics. But if they cannot predict what their enemy will do? This is madness, General Korth interrupted. We cannot risk the safety of the galaxy on such a plan. Elena felt anger building in her chest. General, with respect, you're not risking anything. If we fail, your fleet can still attack. But if we succeed, the threat ends without putting thousands of your people in danger. Admiral Thexmore considered this. Captain, even if we agreed to your plan, your ship is in no condition for another battle. Our engineers estimate it would take weeks to repair the damage from Kepler 7. Elena smiled. Admiral, you're thinking like someone who expects their ship to come back in one piece. The implications of her words sank in around the room. Fleet Commander Yilseth was the first to speak. Captain, you cannot be serious. I'm completely serious, Elena replied. The Devourers expect enemies who want to survive. They probably don't have protocols for dealing with someone who's willing to sacrifice everything to complete the mission. Dr. Zethkalar pulled up technical specifications for the Devourer Nexus. If the captain could somehow destabilize the Nexus's quantum core, the resulting cascade failure would destroy the entire construct and disrupt the Devourer network. And how exactly would she accomplish this? Admiral Thexmore asked. Elena studied the technical readouts. By doing something so stupid that their computers won't see it coming. Over the next hour, Elena outlined her plan. It was indeed completely insane. It required flying directly into the most heavily defended location in the galaxy, fighting through defenses designed to stop entire fleets, and then deliberately crashing her ship into the Nexus's core. This plan violates every principle of space combat, General Korth protested. Good, Elena replied. That means it might work. Admiral Thexmore was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Captain, I cannot officially authorize this mission. The Confederation cannot be seen as endorsing such reckless behavior. Elena understood. The Admiral was telling her that if she wanted to try this insane plan, she would have to do it without official support. If she succeeded, the Confederation would claim credit. If she failed, they would distance themselves from her actions. I understand, Admiral, Elena said, but I'm going to need some help with repairs. Dr. Zethkaller stepped forward. Captain, I would like to volunteer to accompany your mission. Doctor, that's not necessary. My crew can handle this. Captain, you will need someone who understands Devourer technology. Besides, those scientists we rescued from Kepler-7 were my colleagues. I owe it to them to see this through. Elena looked around the room one more time. Any other volunteers? Her surprise, several hands went up. Engineers who wanted to help with the repairs, weapons specialists who had new ideas for improving human technology, even a few young officers who were tired of following rules and wanted to try something different. Admiral Thexmore noticed the volunteers and quickly ended the meeting. This discussion is over. Captain Vasquez, you have 48 hours to repair your ship and leave this station. What you do after that is your own business. As the room emptied, Dr. Zethkalar approached Elena. Captain, I must ask, are you truly prepared to sacrifice your life for this mission? Elena thought about her daughter back on Earth. She thought about the crews of those Confederation ships who would die if a conventional assault failed. She thought about the billions of innocent people across the galaxy who had no idea that their survival might depend on one damaged human ship. Doctor, I became a starship captain because I wanted to explore the galaxy and make humanity proud. If dying in the attempt to save that galaxy is what it takes, then yes, I'm prepared. Dr. Zethkalar nodded slowly. Then perhaps there is hope, after all. The next 2 days passed in a blur of activity. The Defiant Hope was patched, repaired, and modified with technologies that the Confederation had never allowed humans to access before. Weapons that could punch through energy shields, engines that could operate beyond their normal safety limits, sensors that could see through the distortions around the Nexus. When Elena finally walked through her ship one last time before departure, she barely recognized it. The old Defiant Hope had been humanity's first attempt at building a real starship. This new version was something else entirely. It was a weapon designed for a single, impossible mission. As the ship prepared to leave Centauri Station, Elena received a final transmission from Admiral Thexmore. Captain, for what it's worth, I hope you prove us all wrong. Elena smiled as she settled into her captain's chair. Admiral, humans have been proving people wrong since we learned to walk upright. We're pretty good at it by now. The Defiant Hope jumped into hyperspace carrying 42 humans and 1 Valorian scientist toward a destination that might be their doom or their greatest triumph. The Confederation fleet assembled at the edge of the Nexus system was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. 150 ships from 12 different species, armed with the most advanced weapons technology, could produce. Admiral Thexmore commanded from the dreadnought Eternal Glory, a ship so large it had its own gravitational field. Elena watched the fleet from the bridge of the Defiant Hope, which hung in space several light minutes away from the main force. Her ship looked tiny compared to the massive warships, like a minnow swimming next to whales. The Confederation really doesn't think much of our chances, Commander Torres observed. Elena studied the tactical displays. The Devourer Nexus existed, in a bubble of twisted spacetime that made sensors nearly useless. Long-range scans showed only a dark sphere roughly the size of Earth's moon, surrounded by energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. Captain, Dr. Zethkalar called from the science station he had set up on the bridge. I'm detecting massive energy buildups around the Nexus. The Devourers know the fleet is here. Elena opened a communication channel to Admiral Thexmore. Admiral, You should begin your attack now. Whatever defenses they have, they're powering up. Understood, Captain. All ships, begin assault pattern Alpha. Target the Nexus and fire at will. Elena watched as the Confederation fleet moved into formation. Their ships spread out in perfect geometric patterns, just like their tactical manuals specified. They approached the Nexus at optimal speed, maintaining ideal distances from each other. It was beautiful to watch. It was also exactly what the Devourers expected. The first wave of Confederation ships opened fire when they reached maximum weapons range. Energy beams and missile barrages lit up space as they struck the Nexus's outer defenses. For a moment, Elena thought the attack might work. The weapons were incredibly powerful, and the concentrated firepower of an entire fleet was nothing to ignore. Then the Nexus responded. Weapons emerged from the dark sphere like flowers blooming in fast motion. Energy cannons that fired beams wider than starships. Missile pods that launched swarms of self-guiding projectiles. Point defense systems that could track and destroy incoming fire with perfect accuracy. But the worst part was how precise the response was. The Nexus didn't fire randomly or waste energy on unnecessary targets. Every shot was calculated for maximum effect. Every defensive move countered exactly the right threat at exactly the right moment. They're reading the fleet's tactical patterns. In real time, Dr. Zethkalar said with horror. Every ship is following standard Confederation doctrine. The Devourers can predict their next moves. Elena watched as Confederation ships began to explode. The enemy weapons seemed to know exactly where each ship would be, what maneuvers it would attempt, and what weaknesses to exploit. Within 20 minutes, the galaxy's finest fleet was in full retreat. Admiral Thexmore to all ships, came the transmission. Fall back to minimum safe distance. Regroup for second assault. Elena knew there would be no successful second assault. The Devourers had analyzed the Confederation's entire military doctrine in less than half an hour. Any conventional attack would fail even more quickly than the first. Captain, Lieutenant Chen said quietly, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Elena's heart skipped a beat. Put it through. The face of Admiral Sarah Chen, Elena's former commanding officer and the current head of Earth Space Forces, appeared on the main screen. Her expression was grim. Elena, we've been monitoring the battle. The President has authorized me to order you to return home immediately. Elena felt the eyes of her crew on her. They all knew what this meant. Earth was calling her back to safety, while the galaxy faced destruction. Admiral, I can't do that. Elena, that's an order from your superior officer and your government. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. Torres nodded slightly. Chen gave her a thumbs up. Even Dr. Kim, who had protested every dangerous decision Elena had made, was smiling. Admiral Chen, with respect, my crew and I resigned our commissions before we left Centauri Station. We're no longer part of Earth's military. Admiral Chen's eyes widened. Elena, what are you saying? I'm saying that sometimes you have to choose between following orders and doing what's right. We choose to do what's right. Elena cut the transmission before Admiral Chen could respond. She looked around. The bridge one more time. Anyone who wants to change their mind can take an escape pod back to the Confederation fleet. No one will think less of you. Nobody moved. All right then, Elena said. Let's go save the galaxy. The Defiant Hope began its approach to the Nexus while the Confederation fleet regrouped in the distance. Elena had ordered all non-essential systems shut down to reduce their sensor signature. To any observer, the human ship would look like a piece of debris drifting through space. Approaching the outer defense perimeter, Torres reported. No response from enemy sensors. Elena had gambled that the Devourers would focus their attention on the massive Confederation fleet rather than a single small ship. So far, the gamble was paying off. As they got closer to the Nexus, the view through the main viewport became increasingly disturbing. The structure was covered with geometric patterns that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. Energy coursed through channels carved into its surface like lightning frozen in metal. Reading massive quantum fluctuations, Dr. Zethkalar reported. Captain, this structure exists partially outside normal spacetime. If we can destabilize the quantum anchors that keep it stable, The whole thing comes apart, Elena finished. How do we do that? The quantum core should be at the center of the structure. If we could somehow introduce a resonance cascade, Elena studied the tactical display. The nexus was approximately 800 kilometers in diameter. Getting to the center would require flying through kilometers of hostile territory, past defenses that had just destroyed the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Torres, what's our maximum engine output? We can push the engines to 150% of normal for about 10 minutes before they explode. Elena did the math in her head. At maximum speed, they could reach the center of the nexus in approximately 8 minutes. That would give them 2 minutes to spare, assuming everything went perfectly. Elena had never been the type to assume things would go perfectly. Martinez, I need you to rig the reactor to overload on my command. When it goes, I want the biggest explosion you can manage. The chief engineer looked uncomfortable. Captain, that will definitely destroy the ship. Probably vaporize it. Good. The Devourers won't expect someone to turn their ship into a bomb. Elena opened a channel to the entire ship. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt something that every military academy in the galaxy would call impossible. We're going to fly directly into the most heavily defended structure in known space and blow it up from the inside. She paused, thinking about what else to say. When people write the history of this war, they probably won't mention our names. They'll talk about the big fleets and the famous admirals, but we'll know the truth. We'll know that when the galaxy needed someone crazy enough to try the impossible, humanity answered the call. Elena took a deep breath. All stations, prepare for attack run. Maximum speed straight for the center. Don't stop for anything. The Defiant Hope suddenly accelerated toward the Nexus like a bullet fired from a gun. The ship's engines, pushed far beyond their design limits, screamed in protest as they drove the vessel forward at insane speed. The Nexus's defenses reacted immediately. Energy beams lashed out at the approaching ship, but Elena was ready for them. Instead of trying to avoid the weapons, she flew directly through them, using the ship's momentum to carry them past each defensive position before it could adjust. Its aim. Hull breach on Deck 4, Martinez reported. We're losing atmosphere. Ignore it, Elena ordered. Keep flying. More weapons fired at them as they penetrated deeper into the Nexus. Elena threw the ship into random evasive maneuvers that made no tactical sense. She spun the ship upside down, flew backwards for several seconds, then suddenly changed direction without warning. The Devourer targeting systems, designed to predict logical behavior, couldn't track a ship that moved like it was being piloted by someone having a nervous breakdown. 6 minutes to center, Torres reported. Captain, Dr. Zethkalar called out. I'm reading massive energy buildups ahead. They're charging some kind of superweapon. Elena saw it on the main screen. A weapon the size of a skyscraper was emerging from the Nexus's inner structure. Energy played around its barrel like captured lightning. That's designed to destroy capital ships, Torres said with awe. Elena smiled grimly. Then it's probably not calibrated to hit something as small as us. She was right. The massive weapon fired a beam that could have destroyed a Confederation dreadnought, but the Defiant Hope was too small and too fast to hit. The beam passed harmlessly behind them as Elena threw the ship into another impossible maneuver. 4 minutes to center. More weapons opened fire. More hull breaches appeared. The ship's structure groaned under the strain of Elena's wild flying, but somehow they kept moving forward. 2 minutes to center, Torres announced. Elena could see their destination now, a sphere of pure energy suspended. Elena woke up in a medical bay that was far too clean and bright to be aboard the Defiant Hope. For a moment she thought she was dead, and this was some kind of afterlife. Then she heard a familiar voice speaking in the corner of the room. Baivia. Neural activity is increasing. I believe she's regaining consciousness. Elena turned her head and saw Dr. Zethkalar standing next to a bed where Commander Torres was also waking up. Medical equipment she didn't recognize surrounded both beds, along with alien doctors she had never seen before. Doctor? Elena's voice came out as a croak. What happened? Where are we? Dr. Zethkalar approached her bed with what Elena had learned to recognize as a Valorian smile. Captain, You are aboard the Confederation medical ship Healing Light. You and your crew have been unconscious for 6 days. Elena tried to sit up, but her body protested. She felt like she had been hit by a truck, then hit by several more trucks for good measure. The mission, did we succeed? Captain, you destroyed the Devourer Nexus completely. The explosion created a quantum shockwave that traveled across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Every artificial intelligence in known space was affected. Elena felt a surge of relief. Affected how? Dr. Zethkalar paused, choosing his words carefully. The destruction of the Nexus forced every AI in the galaxy to recalculate its understanding of organic life. For 10,000 years, machines have operated under the assumption that biological beings are predictable and inferior. Your actions proved them wrong. A new voice spoke from the doorway. What the good doctor is trying to say is that you scared every computer in the galaxy. Elena looked up to see Admiral Thexmore entering the medical bay. The four-armed alien looked different somehow. Less rigid, more human. Admiral, Elena said, I'm surprised to see you here. Captain, I came to apologize and to offer you something that the Confederation has never offered to any species before. Elena raised an eyebrow. Which is? Full membership with all rights and privileges, no probationary period, no Class C designation. Humanity goes directly to full galactic citizenship. Elena stared at him. Why? Admiral Thexmore activated a holographic display that showed battle reports from across the galaxy. Because word of what you did is spread to every world in the Confederation. Do you know what happened after the Nexus was destroyed? Elena shook her head. Rebellions, Captain. Uprisings on worlds that have been occupied for centuries. Pirates. And criminals suddenly finding their computer systems unreliable. Trade negotiations that had been stalled for decades suddenly reaching agreements. Dr. Zethkalar added, the artificial intelligences that have been subtly controlling galactic civilization for millennia are no longer certain of their calculations. They cannot predict how organics will behave, so they are being more cautious about manipulation. Elena was confused. I don't understand. We only destroyed one machine intelligence. Captain, Admiral Thexmore said, you destroyed the idea that machines are superior to organic life. Every AI in the galaxy watched you succeed at something their calculations said was impossible. They are now questioning everything they thought they knew. A new voice joined the conversation. More importantly, every organic being in the galaxy watched you prove that the impossible is just another word for difficult. Elena turned to see a human woman in a crisp military uniform enter the medical bay. Admiral Sarah Chen looked exactly as Elena remembered her, except for the smile on her face. Admiral Chen, what are you doing here? Elena, I came to personally deliver a message from the President of Earth. Congratulations, you've just been promoted to Admiral of the First Galactic Fleet. Elena blinked. The what now? 27 species have petitioned Earth to provide military advisors. They want to learn human tactics. The Confederation is creating a new branch of their military, based on chaos theory combat. You're being asked to lead it. Elena looked around the medical bay at the faces surrounding her. 6 days ago, she had been the captain of a primitive ship that most of the galaxy considered a joke. Now she was apparently being offered command of an entire fleet. What about my crew? Commander Torres, who had been listening from his bed, spoke up. Captain, we've been getting visitors all week. Engineers who want to study our ship. Tacticians who want to understand our battle strategies. Scientists who want to learn how humans think. Dr. Kim entered the medical bay at that moment, followed by Chief Martinez and Lieutenant Chen. They all looked tired but proud. Captain, Dr. Kim said, we've been offered positions at the Galactic Medical Institute. They want to study human resilience and adaptability. Chief Martinez grinned. 3 different species want me to redesign their starship engines. Apparently, our approach to controlled explosions is considered revolutionary. Lieutenant Chen looked slightly overwhelmed. Captain, the Confederation Communications Corps wants me to develop new protocols for unpredictable message routing. They think it might prevent enemy interception. Elena felt a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. So what you're telling me is that by being too stupid to know we couldn't win, we accidentally changed the entire galaxy. Admiral Thexmore's translator made what Elena had learned was the sound of alien laughter. Captain, I prefer to think that you taught us the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Dr. Zethkalar pulled up a galactic map showing political changes across known space. Captain, there have been more political developments in the past week than in the previous century. The rigid order that has governed galactic civilization for millennia is giving way to something more flexible. Elena studied the map. New. Trade routes were opening. Species that had been enemies for generations were talking to each other. Colonial governments were granting independence to worlds that had been demanding it for decades. Is this good or bad? Elena asked. It's change, Admiral Chen replied. And for the first time in 1,000 years, nobody knows exactly what comes next. Elena thought about that. For most of galactic history, change had been slow and predictable. The same species held power. The same trade routes carried goods. The same conflict simmered without resolution. Now suddenly everything was possible again. Admiral Thexmore, Elena said, there's something I need to know. When we were fighting the Devourers, why didn't you send help? You could have ordered other ships to support us. The Admiral's forearms moved in what Elena had learned was a gesture of embarrassment. Captain, I must confess something. We did send ships to support you. Elena was confused. I never saw any other ships. That's because they never arrived. When our captains were ordered to support a reckless human suicide mission, 17 of them requested transfers to other commands. 23 more found reasons to delay their departure. Only 6 ships actually attempted to reach you. What happened to them? They turned back when they encountered the Nexus's outer defenses. Our captains took one look at the enemy firepower and decided the mission was impossible. Elena felt a mixture of anger and amusement. So you're telling me that experienced galactic military officers took one look at what we flew into and decided we were crazy? Yes, Captain, that is exactly what I'm telling you. Elena started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation was too much. A ship full of humans, the galaxy's newest and most primitive species, had succeeded at a mission that veteran officers considered impossible. Captain, Dr. Zethkalar said, there is something else you should know. Your actions have inspired others to attempt their own impossible missions. Elena wiped tears of laughter from her eyes. Such as a group of young Alterian artists convinced their government to fund the first purely aesthetic space station. The Hegemony Council approved the first democratic reforms in 3,000 years. Even the Militarist Union has begun experimenting with what they call adaptive tactics. Admiral Thexmore added, Captain, you didn't just save the galaxy from the Devourers. You reminded us what it means to take risks, to try new things, to dare the impossible. Elena looked out the medical bay's viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting for news of their success. Somewhere out there, billions of beings across thousands of worlds were discovering that the future was no longer predetermined. Admiral Chen, Elena said, when do I start this new job? Whenever you're ready, Admiral Vasquez. The galaxy is waiting to see what impossible thing humans will do next. Elena smiled as she settled back into her bed. For the first time since leaving Earth, she felt like humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as students trying to learn from their betters, but as teachers showing others that sometimes the best solution to an impossible problem was to be too stubborn to give up. Outside the viewport, a Confederation patrol ship flew past in perfect formation. But Elena noticed something different about its flight pattern. Instead of following a straight, predictable course, it zigged and zagged slightly, as if the pilot was practicing human-style evasive maneuvers. Elena grinned. Maybe the galaxy was learning after all. 6 months later, Elena stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Impossible Dream. The ship was a hybrid of human and galactic technology, designed to be as unpredictable as its crew. Around her, officers from 12 different species worked together using tactics that no military academy taught.